Okay, so let's dive into this whole Corey Lewandowski situation.
Yeah.
Because talk about a political comeback story.
Oh, absolutely. It's like something out of House of Cards, right?
Right. This guy was a central figure in Trump's 2016 campaign. And now he's back for more in 2024, even with all the baggage he's carrying.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so fascinating. Like you said, the baggage.
Okay, so for those of us who need a little refresher, what exactly are we talking about here?
Well, for starters, Lewandowski was fired from Trump's 2016 campaign before it even ended. There were those allegations of assault and misconduct. And then he gets fired again in 2021 from a pro-Trump super PAC.
Hold on, Super PAC. What's that again?
Right, so a super PAC is basically a political action committee, but with superpowers, they can raise and spend unlimited money to support or oppose a candidate, so they wield a lot of influence.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So he gets fired twice, and now he's back for round 3. Why? What's the strategy there?
Well, you see, Lewandowski might have his flaws, but the man is undeniably loyal to Trump. And that loyalty seems to be worth more than gold in Trump's world.
So it's like a no matter what kind of deal.
Pretty much. And we saw that play out in a big way when Lewandowski first rejoined the campaign.
You mean that whole attempted coup thing?
Yeah.
The Guardian article made it sound pretty intense.
It was intense. He basically waltzed back and acting like he was going to run the whole show, tried to push out key players like Chris LaCivita, who's no stranger to Trump world himself.
Right. LaCivita, he's the current campaign manager, isn't he?
Exactly. And then there's Susie Wiles, another major force in the campaign. They've been building a team for the past 2 years, establishing trust and networks. And Lewandowski just thought he could steamroll right over them.
Talk about underestimating your opponent.
Seriously. And to make matters worse, Lewandowski was going behind everyone's back doing a secret audit of the campaign finances because he didn't trust LaCivita.
Wow, so much drama. So did he get away with it? Did he manage to pull off this political coup?
Well, not exactly. It seems loyalty only gets you so far, even in Trump's inner circle.
This is getting good. So what happened?
Basically, the existing team, they fought back, and they had the alliances and the track record to back them up. Lewandowski overplayed his hand, and he paid the price.
So is that it for him? Is he out of the picture now?
Not quite. More like a
What?
strategic retreat.
Okay, I'm listening. What's the new plan? What's Lewandowski in charge of now?
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire. Seriously. I mean, it's a lovely state, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't exactly scream make or break for a presidential campaign.
But that's where you'd be wrong. New Hampshire might be small, but it holds the first-in-the-nation primary.
So
winning it, even by a small margin, can give a candidate huge momentum. It's all about perception.
oh, I see. It's like a psychological boost more than anything else.
Precisely. And remember, Trump lost New Hampshire in 2016 by a hair. He's been itching for a win there ever since.
Okay, that makes sense. But if they're serious about New Hampshire, why put Lewandowski in charge? I mean, wouldn't it be smarter to have someone who can actually appeal to undecided voters there?
You'd think so, right? Honestly, this whole thing just screams, desperation move. But then again, remember Trump's love language. Loyalty.
So they're basically hoping that Lewandowski's particular brand of magic will be enough to swing the state in their favor.
It's a gamble, for sure. Especially since recent polls show VP Harris with a comfortable lead in New Hampshire.
So why focus on a state that seems like a lost cause? Wouldn't Trump's resources be better spent elsewhere?
It's a good question. And honestly, it's hard to say. Maybe they see something in those polls that we don't. Or maybe it is just a last-ditch effort, a Hail Mary.
It's a gamble, that's for sure. And speaking of gambles, didn't the Guardian article also mention that Lewandowski was recently spotted on Trump's private plane?
Yeah, after that whole attempted coup debacle. It's true.
Interesting. So even after all that drama, Trump still wants to keep him close.
It's definitely telling. And it makes you wonder about Trump's leadership style. Like, what does this whole saga say about the people he surrounds himself with?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, does he value loyalty over competence every single time? Because if that's how he runs a campaign, what does that mean for how he'd run the country?
That's a question worth considering.
It's a scary thought, actually, when you really think about it.
It is, isn't it? And it goes beyond Lewandowski. This whole situation makes you wonder about the bigger picture, you know? About Trump's decision-making process.
Exactly. Like if someone like Lewandowski with his history and his style, let's just say if he can still find his way into Trump's inner circle, what does that say about the kind of judgment we might see in a second Trump term.
And remember, this is a man who came very, very close to overturning a Democratic election.
Okay, now you're just trying to keep me up at night.
Just saying.
But
It's a valid concern, right?
okay.
If Trump were to win again and he surrounds himself with people who prioritize loyalty over, well, everything else, what's to stop him from pushing the limits even further?
It's a chilling thought when you put it like that.
And that's not even taking into account the whole chaos as a strategy thing that Trump seems to thrive on.
Right, so we're talking about a potential perfect storm here. A leader who values loyalty above all else with a penchant for chaos, and a team that might not be willing or able to rein him in.
And that brings us back to Lewandowski in New Hampshire. It might seem like a minor detail in the grand scheme of things, but it's actually a perfect example of this dynamic in action.
Okay, I'm starting to see where you're going with this. So you're saying that even though this Lewandowski situation might seem like just another day in the circus that is American politics, it actually reveals something much deeper and potentially scarier about the future if Trump were to be reelected.
Exactly. These seemingly small decisions, these power struggles within the campaign, they could be a sign of things to come.
So what you're saying is even if you don't live in New Hampshire, even if you're completely over all this political drama, this whole thing is still worth paying attention to.
Absolutely. Because the choices made in these, what might seem like minor political battles, they can have huge consequences down the line. They can shape policies, impact lives, and influence the very course of a nation.
Wow, that got really fast.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you leveling with me. It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day craziness and lose sight of the bigger picture.
And speaking of the bigger picture, let's not forget that little detail from the Guardian article. Remember how Lewandowski was recently spotted on Trump's private plane?
Yeah, after everything that went down,
Yeah.
it's kind of mind-boggling.
It really is. And it makes you wonder if this whole loyalty trumps all thing is more than just a campaign strategy. Maybe it's the defining principle of Trump's world.
And if that's the case, what does that mean for the rest of us?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
Like, what does it take to fall out of favor in Trump world? Apparently more than an attempted coup.
Right. It's like he's Teflon. Nothing sticks.
I know. You said it before. But it's just wild to me that loyalty seems to be the ultimate currency in his world, even more than competence or experience.
And that's what makes this whole Lewandowski situation so fascinating and so troubling, because it really does make you question what a second Trump term would look like, you know? Yeah. Would it be more of the same, loyalty over everything else, or would something change?
Yeah, would he suddenly become this super competent manager who values experience and expertise?
Well, let's just say I'm not holding my breath.
I hear you.
Yeah.
So where does that leave us? Back in New Hampshire, with Lewandowski trying to work his magic and Trump hoping for a repeat of 2016.
Pretty much. It's a risky strategy, to say the least.
Do you think it'll work?
Honestly, I have no idea. This election is shaping up to be one for the history books. And with everything we've talked about today, who knows what tricks Trump and his team might pull out of their hats.
Okay, so then let's bring this back to your listeners. What's the takeaway here? What should people be paying attention to as this whole thing unfolds?
That's a great question, and I think it boils down to this. We need to pay attention to the people Trump surrounds himself with, not just now, but if he were to be reelected. Because those appointments, those decisions, they matter. They have real-world consequences.
So we should all be paying attention to who's on Team Trump and who gets left out in the cold.
Exactly. Because as we've seen with Lewandowski, loyalty can be a powerful motivator, and it can lead to some pretty questionable decisions.
It's like that old saying, keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Exactly. And in Trump's world, it seems like the lines between friend and enemy can get a little blurry.
That's for sure. Well, on that note, I want to thank you for joining us today for this deep dive into the curious case of Corey Lewandowski. It's been a wild ride.
As always, it's been a pleasure. And to our listeners out there, keep your eyes peeled and your ears open, because in this election, every detail matters, and who knows what surprises are still in store.
Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and remember, your vote is your voice.